comfy rocker for you. Yeah, ain't it pretty?
Yes, sir. Ain't seen nothing that fancy since the coffin they buried old Judge Carver in.
From a 63-year-old Oscar winner who refused to slow down to two brothers sharing the same bizarre name, the Real McCoys packed more strange behind-the-scenes secrets than any other 50s sitcom. Discover Hollywood injuries, pioneering Latino representation, and the tragic contract dispute that killed TV's groundbreaking rural comedy. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Real McCoys. Fact 1. Walter Brennan was only three-time Oscar winner.
All right, that's all I'm going to say. I ain't going to say no more. Just trying to help, that's all. That's good. All Paul Revere done was to wake up the people. He couldn't keep them from going back to sleep again.
When Walter Brennan took on the role of Grandpa Amos McCoy in 1957, he was already one of the most decorated actors in Hollywood history. Having achieved something no other performer had ever done before or has done since in the supporting actor category. Brennan had won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor 3 times, earning his first Oscar in 1936 for his role in Come and Get It, his second in 1938 for Kentucky, and his third in 1940 for The Westerner, where he played the infamous Judge Roy Bean opposite Gary Cooper. This remarkable achievement made him the first performer ever to win 3 acting Oscars, and he remains the only male actor to have won 3 awards specifically in the supporting actor category. What made his decision to star in a weekly television series even more surprising was that he was 63 years old when The Real McCoys began, an age when most actors of his stature would have been considering retirement or at least slowing down their workload. Yet Brennan saw television as an exciting new frontier rather than a step down from his prestigious film career, and he threw himself into the role of the cantankerous but lovable West Virginia patriarch with the same dedication he had brought to his Oscar-winning performances. The role would become so iconic that an entire generation of viewers would come to know Brennan primarily as Grandpa Amos, rather than as the legendary character actor who had worked alongside some of Hollywood's biggest stars. His willingness to take on this commitment at such a late stage in his career demonstrated both his remarkable work ethic and his understanding that great acting opportunities could come from any medium, whether it was the big screen or the small one sitting in American living rooms. Fact 2. Brennan lost teeth in freak accident.
You take Mac McGinnis is coming here tonight. He knows how to handle women. He don't let that wife of his make no puppy dog out of him. It's pitiful, that's what it is. It's pitiful.
One of the strangest turning points in Walter Brennan's career happened because of a violent accident on a film set in 1932 that would have ended most actors' hopes of playing leading roles, but instead became the secret weapon that defined his entire career. During the filming of a fight scene, another actor accidentally kicked Brennan directly in the face with such force that it knocked out most of his teeth, leaving him with a mouthful of gaps that would have been devastating for any performer hoping to play handsome leading men. However, Brennan later described this painful incident as the luckiest break in the world, and he meant every word of it, because the accident gave him something that no amount of makeup or acting technique could have provided on its own. With his new set of removable dentures, Brennan discovered he had an incredible ability to transform his appearance almost instantly, going from a relatively normal-looking man in his 30s to a weathered old-timer who appeared to be decades older simply by taking out his false teeth. This physical transformation became his trademark technique, and he reportedly would ask directors before each role whether they wanted him to perform with or without, referring to whether he should keep his dentures in or remove them for the character. When directors would ask what he meant, Brennan would simply pop out his teeth and show them exactly how much older and more grizzled he could look in an instant. By the time he was cast as Grandpa Amos McCoy, Brennan had been using this trick for over 25 years. and it allowed him to play the elderly patriarch with complete believability, even though he was not quite as ancient as the character appeared to be on screen. Fact 3. 2 brothers, named Luke, parents forgot.
You ought to be sick with shame for what you're doing, the both of you.
What are we doing? We ain't doing nothing.
Oh, sure you ain't doing nothing. No, you ain't doing nothing but breaking Grandpa's heart. That's what you're doing.
One of the most peculiar aspects of the Real McCoys that confused viewers from the very first episode was the strange fact that 2 brothers in the same family somehow ended up with the exact same name, with Richard Crenna playing the adult Luke McCoy and young Michael Winkleman playing his little brother, who was also called Luke, though everyone referred to him as Little Luke. To avoid confusion, the show's writers knew they needed to address this bizarre naming situation right away, so in the first full episode titled California Here We Come, they had the elder Luke introduce his younger brother to the family's new farmhand, Pepino Garcia, and explain the unusual situation in a way that was both funny and surprisingly believable for a rural Appalachian family. When Pepino naturally asked how 2 brothers could possibly have the same name, Luke explained that when his little brother was born, their parents were so excited about having another baby that they plumb forgot they already had me, which led them to accidentally name the new arrival Luke as well, without realizing they had already used that name years earlier. This explanation became one of the show's running jokes, and highlighted the kind of simple, somewhat scatterbrained charm that the McCoy family was supposed to represent. What made this explanation even more amusing was the enormous age difference between the 2 actors, with Richard Crenna being about 20 years older than Michael Winkleman, which meant their characters' parents would have had children nearly 2 decades apart and still somehow managed to repeat the same name. The show never offered any explanation for where the brothers' parents were or what had happened to them, leaving Grandpa Amos to raise his grandchildren on his own, but the double Luke situation remained a memorable quirk that viewers talked about throughout the series' entire run. Fact 4. Kathleen Nolan's near-fatal horse accident.
Grandpa, that's exactly what I mean. Now, honey, from now on, you got to stay in and do your studying. And little Luke, no more playing hooky from school. And no more fishing until I say you can.
On February 23, 1961, the production of The Real McCoys was thrown into chaos. When actress Kathleen Nolan, who played the beloved character Kate McCoy, was thrown from a horse during the filming of an episode called The Horse Expert, and suffered injuries so severe that they nearly ended her career and changed the entire direction of the series. The accident happened without warning during what should have been a routine scene, but something spooked the horse or caused it to react unexpectedly, and Nolan was thrown from the saddle with enough force to cause serious damage to her body that required immediate hospitalization. The injuries were significant enough that Nolan found herself going in and out of the hospital many times over the following months as doctors worked to help her recover, and she was completely unable to work on the show for a total of 4 months while her body healed from the trauma. The production team had to scramble to explain Kate's sudden absence from the series, eventually settling on the explanation that she was away taking care of a sick relative, which allowed them to continue filming episodes without completely derailing the ongoing storylines. Nolan eventually returned to the series in the episode that aired on June 15, 1961, but the accident had taken a serious toll on both her physical health and her relationship with the production. Many fans and historians believe that this traumatic experience played a significant role in her decision to leave the show before its final season, as the combination of her injuries and ongoing contract disputes made continuing with the series increasingly difficult. The accident remains one of the most serious on-set injuries in 1950s television history and serves as a reminder of the very real dangers that actors faced during an era with fewer safety regulations. Fact 5. First female Screen Actors Guild president.
Carry me into the house.
you got yourself a Charlie horse?
After Kathleen Nolan left the Real McCoys following her horse accident and subsequent contract disputes, she went on to achieve something far more historically significant than any television role could have provided, becoming the first woman ever elected to serve as president of the Screen Actors Guild in 1975 and breaking through one of Hollywood's most stubborn glass ceilings. The Screen Actors Guild had been founded in 1933 and had been led exclusively by men for over 4 decades, with famous actors like Ronald Reagan and Charlton Heston serving in the position. But Nolan challenged this tradition by running as an independent candidate rather than accepting the official nomination from the Guild's nominating committee. Her campaign was successful beyond anyone's expectations, and she defeated not only the committee's chosen candidate, but also 3 other independent challengers, winning by a margin of 2-1 and proving that the Guild's membership was ready for female leadership. Nolan served 2 consecutive terms as president from 1975 to 1979, during which time she presided over the Guild's 4th strike in late 1978 through early 1979, fighting for better conditions and compensation for actors working in television commercials. Throughout her presidency, she advocated for causes that went beyond simple contract negotiations, pushing for non-gender-specific casting that would create more opportunities for actresses and fighting against practices she believed limited actors' opportunities unfairly. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter recognized her contributions to the entertainment industry and public service by appointing her to the board of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, further cementing her legacy as a trailblazer who used her platform to advocate for meaningful change in Hollywood. Fact 6. Puerto Rican actor, played Mexican farmhand.
Peppino, wake up!
Senor Grandpa, look.
Come on, we got bugs to kill. It's 5 after 6. A practical waste the whole day away here.
The character of Peppino Garcia, the lovable Mexican farmhand who worked on the McCoy family's California ranch, was played by Tony Martinez, an actor who was not actually Mexican at all, but was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and had trained as a classical musician at the prestigious Juilliard School in New York City before ever considering a career in acting. Martinez had come to New York to study music seriously, learning to play 5 different instruments and eventually forming his own band called Tony Martinez and his Mambo, which performed regularly on the Sunset Strip and even appeared in the 1956 rock and roll film Rock Around the Clock, alongside Bill Haley and the Comets. The story of how Martinez was cast in The Real McCoys is almost as unlikely as the role itself, because when the show's creator, Irving Pincus, and his brother Norman first approached Martinez about playing Peppino after seeing him perform with his band, Martinez was so convinced that their interest was some kind of joke that he didn't even bother to follow up with them about the opportunity. The Pincus brothers had to actively pursue Martinez and convince him that their offer was genuine before he finally agreed to audition for the role, a decision that would change his entire career and make him one of the most recognizable Latino faces on American television during an era when such representation was extremely rare. Kathleen Nolan, his co-star on the series, later recalled that Martinez was just a natural and had this enormous sense of comedy timing that allowed him to hold his own alongside experienced actors like Walter Brennan and Richard Crenna, despite having come to acting relatively late in his career after establishing himself primarily as a musician. Fact 7. Peppino became earliest Latino TV regular.
And you hurry up and get dressed now.
Si, Senor Grandpa. I will be ready in 2 minutes.
When Tony Martinez was cast as Peppino Garcia on The Real McCoys. In 1957, he became part of a very small group of Latino performers who had managed to secure regular roles on American television series during the early years of the medium, joining the ranks of pioneers like Leo Carrillo and Desi Arnaz Sr. in breaking down barriers that had kept Hispanic actors largely invisible on the small screen. Kathleen Nolan, who worked alongside Martinez for 5 seasons, later described his casting as a major breakthrough in terms of minority representation on television, acknowledging that while the representation might not have met the standards that audiences would expect in later decades, it was still enormously significant for its time to have a major character on television that was not white, appearing week after week in American living rooms. The character of Peppino was admittedly constructed with some stereotypical elements, including an exaggerated accent and his habit of referring to Walter Brennan's character as Senor Grandpa. But Nolan and others who worked on the show noted that beneath these surface-level characteristics, Peppino was written as a wise and thoughtful character who often served as the voice of reason when the McCoy family found themselves in conflicts. As Nolan explained, when there was conflict on the show, it was often Peppino who would calmly suggest a sensible solution, making him what she called the sleeper resolver of the family's problems rather than simply comic relief. Martinez embraced the role so completely that he later used the personalized license plate Peppino on his car in Nevada, where he spent his later years showing just how much the character had come to define his legacy in the entertainment industry. Fact 8. Crenna called show better than acting school.
When I took them marriage vows, I said, till death do us part. Not a tractor.
Richard Crenna, who played Luke McCoy throughout all 224 episodes of The Real McCoys, was already an experienced performer when he joined the series, having spent years working in radio and television on shows like Our Miss Brooks. But he always maintained that nothing in his previous career had prepared him for the education he received simply by working alongside Walter Brennan, week after week. Crenna stated many times throughout his subsequent career that the experience of watching Brennan work and learning from his techniques was more valuable than any formal acting training he could have received, comparing it favorably to studying at institutions like the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London or working with legendary acting teachers like Stella Adler, who had trained some of the greatest performers of the 20th century. What made Brennan such an effective teacher, even though he was never formally trying to teach anyone, was his complete mastery of the craft after decades of working in Hollywood with some of the greatest directors and actors in film history, giving him an instinctive understanding of timing, character, development, and screen presence that could not be learned from textbooks or classroom exercises. Crenna absorbed these lessons through observation and practice, and the education paid off handsomely in his later career, when he went on to star in dramatic roles that were completely different from the country bumpkin he had played on The Real McCoys, including his memorable performances in films like The Sand Pebbles and Wait Until Dark, as well as his iconic role as Colonel Troutman in the Rambo film series. The respect Crenna had for Brennan's abilities was shared by many who worked with the veteran actor, but few expressed it as clearly or as often as Crenna did when discussing how The Real McCoys had shaped him as a performer. Fact 9. Brennan filmed Rio Bravo. While doing series...
Them boys out there that was slobbering in the trumpets and couldn't play was because I was sitting out in front of them sucking on a lemon.
One of the most impressive aspects of Walter Brennan's work on The Real McCoys was not just the quality of his performance as Grandpa Amos, but the fact that he managed to maintain an active film career simultaneously with the grueling schedule of a weekly television series, something that would have exhausted actors half his age. While filming episodes of The Real McCoys throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s, Brennan also appeared in major Hollywood productions, including Rio Bravo in 1959, where he played the memorable character of Stumpy opposite John Wayne in what became one of the most beloved westerns ever made, and the epic How the West Was Won in 1962, which featured an all-star cast and won 3 Academy Awards. The logistics of balancing these commitments must have been extraordinarily demanding, requiring Brennan to shuttle between television sound stages where he filmed his sitcom work and movie locations where he took on substantial dramatic roles that required intense focus and physical stamina. Remember that Brennan was 63 years old when The Real McCoys began, and nearly 70 by the time the series ended. Yet he showed no signs of slowing down or delivering performances that suggested he was spreading himself too thin across multiple projects. His ability to maintain this pace while delivering consistently excellent work in both mediums speaks to the incredible professionalism and work ethic that had made him one of Hollywood's most respected character actors in the first place. The fact that audiences could see Brennan as the comedic, lovable Grandpa Amos on their television screens one week, and then watch him deliver a completely different kind of performance in a major theatrical release demonstrated the remarkable range that had earned him those 3 Academy Awards earlier in his career. Fact 10. Future Eddie Munster appeared in final season.
Television. And a spike. And those great walkie-talkies. Yeah, and this neat plate.
During the final season of The Real McCoys in 1963, a young child actor named Butch Patrick appeared in 7 episodes as a character named Greg Howard, the son of a widow who was being set up as a potential new love interest for the recently widowed Luke McCoy. And this same young performer would go on to become one of the most recognizable child stars of the 1960s just 1 year later. Patrick, who was born Patrick Allen Laley in Inglewood, California, had been working steadily in television since he was 7 years old, appearing in guest roles on popular shows like Ben Casey, Bonanza, My Favorite Martian, Gunsmoke, and Mr. Ed, before landing his recurring role on The Real McCoys, where he worked alongside veteran Oscar winner Walter Brennan and experienced television actor Richard Crenna. The young actor later described working with Brennan and Crenna as a huge treat, recognizing even at his young age that he was learning from performers who had mastered their craft over decades of work in Hollywood. Just 1 year after his appearances on The Real McCoys ended, Patrick was cast in the role that would define his entire career when he won the part of Eddie Munster, the young werewolf child on the CBS comedy series The Munsters, which ran from 1964 to 1966 and became a beloved cult classic that continues to have fans to this day. Patrick appeared in all but the pilot episode of The Munsters and later reprised the role in the 1966 theatrical film Munster Go Home. But before he became television's most famous little monster, he was just another working child actor getting valuable experience on one of the last seasons of America's original rural sitcom. Fact 11. Kate's death killed the series.
Say, you ain't figuring on still going fishing, are you?
Well, sure I am. Why not?
Well, with my mother being here, what you gonna say?
When Kathleen Nolan departed The Real McCoys before its 6th and final season due to an unresolved contract dispute with the production, the show's writers made the fateful decision to write her character Kate McCoy out of the series by having her die off screen. A choice that would prove to be the beginning of the end for one of television's most successful rural comedies. The death was handled in the most understated way possible, with Kate's passing never being shown or explained in any detail, and Luke McCoy simply being referred to as a widower in the new episodes, without any real acknowledgement of the emotional weight such a loss would carry for the character and his family. This abrupt removal of what many considered the heart and soul of the series coincided with other major changes, including the show's move from ABC to CBS and a shift in time slot from Thursday evenings to Sunday evenings, where it was placed directly opposite NBC's enormously popular Western series Bonanza in what seemed like a scheduling decision designed to fail. The combination of losing Kate, changing networks, and facing impossible competition proved to be too much for the Real McCoys to overcome, and the ratings dropped so dramatically that CBS canceled the series after just one season, bringing the show's 6-year run to an unceremonious end. Many fans and television historians have compared the impact of Nolan's departure to the later departure of Don Knotts from The Andy Griffith Show, noting that both shows lost something essential when these key performers left and were never quite the same afterward. The final season also saw the departure of the young actors who played Hassie and Little Luke, leaving Luke and Grandpa Amos essentially alone, which only reinforced the sense that the warm family dynamic that had made the show successful had been irreparably broken. Fact 12 pioneered the rural sitcom genre.
I admit that Mr. Lopez is a pretty shrewd judge of character.
I think it's terrible the way he's talking to Peppino.
Before the Beverly Hillbillies brought Jed Clampett and his family to television screens in 1962, before The Andy Griffith Show introduced audiences to the charming small town of Mayberry in 1960, and before Petticoat Junction and Green Acres continued the trend throughout the decade, there was The Real McCoys, which premiered on ABC in October of 1957 and proved to television executives that American audiences would embrace comedy series centered on rural characters and country settings. The show's success was not guaranteed when it first aired, as many network executives at the time believed that rural families were unlikely to own televisions in the first place, and that sophisticated urban audiences would have no interest in watching programs about country bumpkins adjusting to life outside their Appalachian homes. When The Real McCoys became a massive hit and consistently ranked in the top 10 most watched programs on television throughout its run on ABC, it shattered these assumptions and opened the floodgates for an entire genre of programming that would come to dominate CBS's schedule throughout the 1960s. The direct line of influence from The Real McCoys to its successors is impossible to miss, as both shows featured families from Appalachia relocating to California and adjusting to their new surroundings while maintaining their traditional values and folksy wisdom. Danny Thomas, whose production company, Martyr Productions, co-produced The Real McCoys, and writer Paul Henning, who worked on early scripts for the series, would both go on to play crucial roles in creating the rural comedy hits that followed, with Henning eventually creating the Beverly Hillbillies and its spin-offs Petticoat Junction and Green Acres, building directly on the foundation that The Real McCoys had established years earlier. Fact 13, filmed on famous Gone with Wind. Backlot.
You hear? Now, just a minute, Miss High and Mighty. Let me tell you...
Grandpa, don't get your dander
I
up.
can get my dander up.
The Real McCoys was filmed at the legendary Desilu Studios in Hollywood, utilizing a portion of the historic 40 acres backlot that had been home to some of the most famous film productions in Hollywood history, including serving as the location where the iconic Terra plantation from Gone with the Wind had once stood before being demolished to make room for new productions. The 40 acres backlot, located in Culver City, California, had been used for filmmaking since the early days of Hollywood and had seen countless movies and television shows pass through its gates. But by the time The Real McCoys began production in the late 1950s, the lot had become the property of Desilu Productions, the company founded by Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz that was responsible for some of the most successful television programs of the era. The McCoy family's California farmhouse set was constructed in the southwest corner of the backlot, in an area that would later be transformed into the Marine Corps barracks used for exterior filming on another popular CBS series, Gomer Pyle USMC, which ran from 1964 to 1969. This meant that the same physical space that had represented the McCoys' humble dirt farm was later converted into a military installation, demonstrating how television productions of the era constantly recycled and repurposed existing sets to meet the demands of their production schedules. The 40 acres backlot continued to be used for film and television production until the early 1970s, when the property fell into disrepair and was eventually sold in 1976, with bulldozers finally demolishing the remaining structures and bringing down the curtain on a piece of Hollywood history. Fact 14. Pilot used different ranch location.
Why, one little nibble will tell you that it just ain't got that sort of a mental flavor she ought to have.
When the pilot episode of The Real McCoys was filmed, the production team chose to shoot at the Middle Iverson Ranch set in Chatsworth, California, a location that had been used for Western films and television shows for decades and provided an authentic-looking rural setting that perfectly matched the vision of what the McCoy family's new California home should look like. The Iverson Movie Ranch was one of the most widely filmed outdoor locations in Hollywood history, with its distinctive rock formations and rustic buildings appearing in countless westerns and adventure serials dating back to the silent film era, making it a natural choice for establishing the visual look of the series. However, after the pilot was completed and the series was picked up for a full season, the production team made the decision to construct a new set on the Desilu backlot that would be more convenient for ongoing weekly production, rather than requiring the cast and crew to travel out to the Chatsworth location for every episode. The new set was designed to closely resemble the original Middle Iverson ranch house that had been used in the pilot, with particular attention paid to matching distinctive architectural features like the rake-style roof supports that gave the building its characteristic appearance. This attention to detail was so successful that casual viewers would have been unlikely to notice that the house in the pilot and the house in subsequent episodes were actually two completely different structures located miles apart, demonstrating the skill of the set designers in creating visual continuity between the pilot and the series proper. The original Middle Iverson Ranch set continued to be used for other productions, until September of 1970, when a massive fire swept through the region and destroyed most of the remaining structures on the property. Fact 15. Danny Thomas connection to hit sitcoms.
A Capulet? That's her name, Julia Capulet.
The Real McCoys was co-produced by Danny Thomas's production company, Martyr 2 Productions, in association with the Brennan Westgate Company, formed by Walter Brennan and series creator Irving Pincus, creating a behind-the-scenes connection between America's original rural sitcom and the entertainment mogul who would go on to shape television comedy for decades to come. Danny Thomas was already a major star and successful television producer when he became involved with The Real McCoys, having created and starred in his own popular series, Make Room for Daddy, also known as The Danny Thomas Show, which ran from 1953 to 1965 and established him as one of the most powerful figures in television production. His involvement with The Real McCoys helped establish the template for rural comedy that would be followed by numerous subsequent shows, and writer Paul Henning, who contributed to early scripts for the series, would later take the lessons he learned and apply them to creating The Beverly Hillbillies in 1962, followed by the spin-off series Petticoat Junction and Green Acres. The connections between these shows extended even further through Richard Crenna, who not only starred in all 224 episodes of The Real McCoys, but also became one of the series' 4 directors during its run, and then went on to direct 8 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show during its 1963 to 1964 season, including beloved episodes like Opie the Birdman and The Sermon for Today. This interconnected web of producers, writers, and directors who moved between The Real McCoys and the rural comedies that followed it demonstrates how the show served as a training ground and creative incubator for an entire genre of television programming that would dominate American screens throughout the 1960s.